Top HFY stories. What sets a fighter apart from a missile? In the silent void of space, Commander Elias Drex sat in the cockpit of his fighter, watching the distant shimmer of the enemy fleet. The aliens' spell had brought war to humanity's doorstep, their armadas overwhelming planet after planet with cold, mechanical precision. Yet, as Elias gripped the controls, he reminded himself that humanity had something the spell couldn't replicate: ingenuity. Squadron leader, came the calm voice of Captain Wren over the comms. Are you ready for the final run? Elias glanced at his team, 12 fighters hovering in a loose formation, each an extension of the pilot within. Ready as we'll ever be, he replied. Remember, people, we're not missiles, let's make it count. The comparison wasn't new. To the untrained eye, a missile and a fighter might seem similar. Both were tools of destruction, but a missile followed a pre-programmed trajectory, unthinking, unstoppable. A fighter, on the other hand, was guided by a human mind, capable of adapting, improvising, and defying the odds. The spell relied heavily on automated drones. Their tactics were efficient but predictable. Humanity's pilots, however, thrived in chaos, and chaos was exactly what Elias planned to unleash. The plan was simple on paper: punch through the enemy's perimeter, destroy their central command ship, and cripple their ability to coordinate. But simple plans rarely stayed that way in the thick of battle. Engage, Elias barked, throttling forward. The squadron split into two groups, weaving through a storm of plasma fire and guided drones. Elias led the first wave, his fighter darting like a predator through the fray. The spell drones were fast, but they lacked creativity. When one locked onto his tail, Elias barrel rolled, then flipped into a sudden climb, letting the drone overshoot before blasting it into scrap. As the battle raged, the fighter's humanity shone through. Lieutenant Vega, the squadron's joker, taunted the drones with daring maneuvers, drawing them into traps. Corporal Lynn's precise targeting picked off critical threats, her quiet focus a stark contrast to the chaos around her. Elias's mind raced as he adjusted to the battlefield. The command ship loomed ahead, shielded by a lattice of drone interceptors. The squadron had already lost 2 fighters. Their voices, once vibrant over the comms, had gone silent. He clenched his teeth. We're not missiles, we're more than that. All units, form up on me, Elias commanded. We're making our move. The remaining fighters converged into a tight formation, their collective firepower concentrated on a single weak point in the command ship's shields. The drones swarmed, trying to overwhelm them, but humanity's greatest strength wasn't just adaptability, it was the ability to work together, to sacrifice for one another. As the shield began to buckle, Elias knew what he had to do. Vega, Lynn, pull back, I'll finish it. Commander, no, Lynn protested. That's an order, Elias snapped, his voice firm. With a final burst of speed, Elias's fighter dove straight into the breach. The Svel command ship's defenses faltered, its hull exposed. As he released his payload, Elias smiled, knowing his actions would give humanity a fighting chance. The explosion lit up the void, and the Svel fleet faltered, their coordination shattered. Vega and Lynn led the surviving fighters back to the carrier, their hearts heavy but determined. In the aftermath, Captain Wren addressed the squadron. Commander Drex once said, we're not missiles, we're fighters. Fighters think, adapt, and sacrifice, and that's why we'll win. Elias's name would live on, a reminder of what set humanity apart, the spirit to fight not as machines, but as people, driven by hope and the will to survive. As the smoke of the recent battle settled and the Svel fleet retreated into the depths of space, Vega and Lynn found themselves seated in the debriefing room aboard the EOS Vanguard. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. I still can't believe he's gone, Vega murmured, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. His usual cocky grin was nowhere to be found. Lynn nodded, her sharp eyes fixed on the holographic map in front of them. The Svel territory glowed like an angry red scar across the galaxy. He knew what he was doing, she said quietly. He always did. Captain Wren entered the room, her face a mask of resolve. I know this is hard, she began, her voice measured, but Drex's sacrifice wasn't in vain. We've analyzed the data from the command ship's wreckage. There's something you need to see. With a wave of her hand, Wren expanded the hologram. A 3-dimensional model of the Svel command core flickered into view. It was an intricate mesh of conduits and pulsating nodes, alien in design but unmistakably alive. "This isn't just a control system," Ren said. "It's a neural network, organic and mechanical. The Svel aren't just using drones, their ships are extensions of themselves. They're connected to their fleet in ways we didn't fully understand until now." Vega frowned. "So, you're saying their ships are them?" "Exactly," Ren replied, "and that's why Drex's attack was so effective. By destroying their command ship, we severed a critical node in their network." "But," she hesitated, her expression darkening, "it also means the Svel will adapt. They're not just machines, they're evolving organisms." Lin's voice was steady, but her gaze was piercing. "So, what's our next move?" Ren leaned forward. "We hit them where it hurts. If their fleet operates like a hive mind, then there's a queen, or something akin to it. Our intelligence points to a massive station deep in their territory. If we can take it out, we can cripple their ability to wage war." "Suicide mission," Vega muttered, though there was a spark of determination in his tone. "I like it." "Not suicide," Ren countered. "We've learned from Drex, this isn't about throwing ourselves at the enemy, it's about being smarter, faster, and more unpredictable than they ever expect." Lin folded her arms. "When do we leave?" The captain smiled faintly. "Soon, but first, we'll need upgrades, both to our fighters and our tactics. Drex's legacy is that humanity fights as individuals, not missiles. We'll honor that by being the best damn fighters the galaxy has ever seen." The weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. The engineers aboard the EOS Vanguard worked tirelessly to retrofit the squadron's fighters with experimental tech, plasma shielding, enhanced thrusters, and EMP payloads designed to disrupt the Svel network. Pilots underwent rigorous simulations, training to think and act beyond the constraints of traditional battle doctrine. When the time came, the squadron was ready. Lin, now promoted to squadron leader, stood in front of her team. "This mission isn't about revenge," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's about survival. Drex showed us what it means to fight not as machines, but as people. Let's show the Svel what that means." The squadron launched into the void, their fighters streaking toward the heart of enemy space. The Svel station loomed in the distance, a massive, pulsating structure surrounded by a web of automated defenses. It was a daunting sight, but none of the pilots wavered. As the first wave of drones swarmed, Vega whooped over the comms, "Let's dance, tin cans." Lin led the charge, her fighter weaving through enemy fire with precision. The squadron worked in perfect sync, their human ingenuity outmaneuvering the Svel's cold efficiency. They weren't missiles, and they weren't mindless drones. They were fighters, unpredictable, adaptable, and unstoppable. The battle raged on, but the squadron pushed through, reaching the heart of the station. Lin's voice crackled over the comms. "This is for Drex. All units, focus fire on the core." The combined firepower of the squadron breached the station's defenses, and with a final, deafening explosion, the Svel station was destroyed, the hive mind was shattered, and the remaining drones drifted aimlessly. As the squadron regrouped, Vega's voice broke the silence. "Think they'll write songs about us?" Lin smirked. "Only if we live to tell the tale." Humanity had proven, once again, that its strength lay not in its machines, but in its people. The victory over the Svel station was monumental, but the celebration aboard the EOS Vanguard was muted. Everyone knew this was a turning point, not the end of the war. The Svel were scattered, but they weren't gone. Lin stood on the observation deck, staring out at the wreckage of the enemy station as the Vanguard drifted away. The debris field glinted faintly in the starlight, a silent testament to their triumph and loss. She clenched her fists, thinking of Drex and the others who hadn't made it this far. Behind her, Vega approached, his usual swagger slightly subdued. "You're going to burn a hole in the glass if you keep staring like that," he quipped. Lin turned, her expression softening slightly. "Just thinking about what's next." "Next?" Vega raised an eyebrow. "I thought we just saved the galaxy. Isn't it time for a break?" She shook her head. "We disrupted the Svel, but we didn't destroy them. We can't afford to let up. They're probably regrouping already." Vega leaned against the railing, his grin returning. "You know, you've got Drex's habit of always looking ahead. It's inspiring, but exhausting." Lin smiled faintly. "Somebody has to, and besides, he wouldn't want us to stop now." Before Vega could reply, Captain Wren's voice came over the ship's intercom. "Squadron leaders, report to the briefing room immediately." The briefing room buzzed with quiet urgency as Lin, Vega, and the other squad leaders gathered around the holographic table. Captain Wren stood at its head, her expression grim but focused. "We've intercepted communications from the SFEL," she began. "They're in disarray, but not for long. Our intelligence suggests they're regrouping at a central stronghold, an artificial world they call the Nexus." A hologram of the Nexus appeared, a colossal, planet-like structure bristling with weaponry and surrounded by defensive fleets. Its surface pulsed with the same organic mechanical glow as the command ship and the station they destroyed. "This isn't just a military base," Wren continued, "it's the heart of their network. Every drone, every ship, they all draw power and directives from the Nexus. If we destroy it, we end this SFEL threat for good." The room fell silent as the pilots absorbed the gravity of the mission. Finally, Vega whistled low. "You're really leaning into the whole suicide mission theme, huh?" Wren's lips twitched in a faint smile. "It won't be easy, but if anyone can pull this off, it's this squadron. You've already proven you can outthink the SFEL. Now we need you to do it one last time." Lin stepped forward, her voice steady. "What's the plan?" Wren brought up a detailed schematic of the Nexus. "We'll divide into 3 teams. One will engage the outer fleet, creating a diversion. The second will infiltrate the Nexus and plant charges at critical points. The third will provide cover and extract the infiltrators." Lin nodded. "And who leads the infiltration team?" Wren's eyes met hers. "You do. You're the best we have, Lin, and I need you to finish what Drex started." The squadron's preparations were swift and meticulous. Each pilot knew this mission could be their last, but there was no hesitation. Humanity's survival depended on their success. As the fighters launched toward the Nexus, Lin's voice came over the comms. "Remember, we're not machines, we're fighters. Trust your instincts, trust each other, and we'll make it through." The first wave of SFEL defenses hit like a hammer, but the squadron held strong. Vega's team executed daring maneuvers, drawing enemy fire away from the infiltration team. Lin and her squad darted through the chaos, weaving past drones and automated turrets to breach the Nexus's outer shell. Inside, the alien structure was a labyrinth of pulsating conduits and glowing nodes. Lin's team moved with precision, planting charges at key points while fending off waves of SFEL drones. The air was thick with tension, every second feeling like an eternity. "Charges are set," Lin reported. "We're heading to the extraction point." As they raced toward their exit, a massive SFEL drone, larger and more advanced than any they'd seen, blocked their path. It was clearly an elite guardian, designed to protect the Nexus at all costs. Lin gritted her teeth. "Keep going, I'll hold it off." "Not this time," Vega's voice crackled over the comms. His fighter appeared, blasting the guardian with everything he had. "You're not pulling a Drex on me, Lin. We're getting out of here together." The two of them worked in tandem, their movements perfectly synchronized as they outmaneuvered the guardian. With a final, well-placed shot, they brought it down and raced back to their ships. The squadron barely made it out as the charges detonated. The Nexus erupted in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. Cut off from their central hub, the remaining SFEL forces faltered and fell into disarray. Back aboard the EOS Vanguard, the mood was jubilant. The SFEL threat was over, and humanity had won. But for Lin, the victory was bittersweet. She stood in the observation deck once more, gazing at the empty stars where the Nexus had been. "You did it," Vega said, joining her. "We did it." Lin nodded. "Yeah, but it wasn't just us, it was Drex, and everyone else who gave everything to get us here." Vega grinned. "Then let's make sure we live a life worth their sacrifice." For the first time in a long while, Lin smiled. Humanity's future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape, and as long as they remembered what set them apart, they would endure.